Stop waiting. Start becoming. Welcome to Becoming with Beck, the podcast for those ready to shift their mindset, lead themselves, and manifest intentionally. If you know you're meant for more, you're in the right place. Let's begin.
Hello and welcome back to Becoming with Beck. I'm your host, Beck Robinson, and thank you so much for joining me today. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you genuinely surprised yourself? Not in a small way, not, oh, I woke up early today, but in a real, meaningful way. The kind where you thought, who even is this person? Most of us, if we're honest, it's been a while. We have all at some point confused familiarity with identity. We've confused the way we've always been with the way we have to be. We've confused our past with our future, and we've been running on autopilot. Biological, emotional, neurological autopilot without even realizing it. Today, I want to crack that open because I've been sitting with a body of work that genuinely shifted something in me, and I'd be doing you a disservice if I kept it to myself. We're talking about the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza, specifically his book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, and I'm going to walk you through the core concepts in a way that's practical, that makes sense, and that you can actually apply to your life starting today. This is not a fluffy conversation. This is neuroscience. This is quantum physics. This is the science of change and why most of us are unknowingly blocking the very life we say we want. So grab a drink, get comfortable, and let's go deep. Let's start with the most fundamental question. Who are you? Now, most people would answer with their name, their job, their relationships, maybe their values, maybe their struggles. But Joe Dispenza invites us to go a lot deeper than that. And what he finds when he does is both fascinating and a little confusing. Here's the core premise of his work. Your personality creates your personal reality. What does that mean? It means the way you show up, your thoughts, your emotions, your habitual behaviors is directly shaping the life you're living. Not metaphorically, literally, neurologically, biologically. And here's where it gets interesting. By the time most of us reach our mid-30s, research suggests that about 95% of who we are is essentially a subconscious program, a set of memorized behaviors, automated emotional responses, deeply held beliefs, and unconscious habits that we run on repeat day after day without ever questioning them. How crazy is that? That means only about 5% of your day is actually conscious thought. The rest, your brain is just running the same old script it's been running for decades. Think about that for a second. You wake up in the morning and before you've even had your coffee, your subconscious mind has already started firing, reaching for the same thoughts, producing the same emotional cocktail, predisposing you toward the same behaviors. The same irritation, the same self-doubt, the same scrolling, the same conversations in your head. You have become a habit, and that habit has a name, and you call it yourself. Now, I want to be really clear here. This is not about self-blame. Joe Dispenza isn't saying you're broken or that you've been doing life wrong. What he's saying is that this is just how the brain works. It's efficient. It's designed to automate. The problem only starts when the automated version of you is no longer aligned with who you actually want to be. And for a lot of us, especially those on a path of growth, of manifestation, of self-leadership, there's a massive gap between our conscious desires and our subconscious programming. We want abundance, but we're running a scarcity program. We want love, but we're running a self-protection program. We want freedom, but we're running a fear program. And no amount of vision boarding is going to bridge the gap if you haven't dealt with what's running underneath. So that's the problem. Now let's talk about why. To understand how to change, we need to understand why change is so hard. And Joe explains this beautifully by looking at what's happening in your brain and body. You've probably heard the phrase. It was coined by neuropsychologist Donald Hebb, and it's one of the most important things to understand about the human mind. Every experience you have, every thought, every emotion, every event causes neurons in your brain to fire. And when they fire repeatedly in the same pattern, they start to wire together. They form what are called neural networks, basically grooves in your brain that represent a particular way of thinking or feeling. The more you repeat a thought or a feeling, the stronger that neuron network becomes, until eventually it fires automatically without any conscious effort from you. This is great for learning to drive a car, not so great when what you're wired is I'm not good enough, or money is hard to come by, or people always leave. But it goes even deeper than your brain, because Joe talks a lot about the role of the body in keeping you stuck. Here's something that blew my mind when I first read it. Your body doesn't know the difference between a real experience and a thought. Doesn't know the difference between reality and imagination. When you think about something stressful, a difficult conversation, a financial worry, a fear about the future, your body begins to produce the same stress hormones as if that thing were actually happening right now. Cortisol, adrenaline, your heart rate goes up, your muscles tense. And over time, if you're repeatedly thinking stressful, fearful, or negative thoughts, your body becomes physically conditioned to those emotional states. You become addicted to those emotions, not in a weak-willed way, but in a genuine biochemical way. Joe explains it like this. Emotions are chemicals. When you feel an emotion, your brain produces neuropeptides, chemical messengers that travel through your bloodstream and dock onto your cells. And like any chemical, your cells can become desensitized to it, requiring more and more just to feel the same effect. So if you've been living in low-level anxiety for years, your body has literally become dependent on that chemical state. It expects it. It craves it. And when you try to change, when you try to feel calm or confident or abundant, your body actually resists it. It signals to your brain, this doesn't feel right. This isn't familiar. Get back to what we know. And this is why willpower alone almost never works for lasting change. You can think positively all you want, you can set intentions, you can journal, but if your body is still living in the emotional signature of your old self, your nervous system will keep pulling you back. This is not weakness, this is biology. But, and this is the good news, biology can be changed. The brain is neuroplastic. It can change, it can rewire at any age. You can literally think your way into a new brain. And with practice, you can condition your body into a new emotional state, a new baseline, a new normal. That's the promise of this work. And it is genuinely extraordinary. Now, this is where Joe's work starts to move from neuroscience into something a little more expansive. And I want to take you there carefully because I think this is where some people either lean in hard or tap out. We're going to talk about quantum physics, but I promise to keep it practical. In classical Newtonian physics, the science most of us were taught, the world works like a machine, cause and effect. Actions produce predictable outcomes. Reality is fixed, measurable, observable. But quantum physics tells a very different story. At a subatomic level, the level of pure energy and possibility, particles don't behave like solid things. They exist as waves of probability. They're not in one fixed location. They exist as potential, multiple possible states simultaneously until they are observed, until consciousness reacts with them. This is called the observer effect. And it's one of the most replicated, peer-reviewed phenomena in all of physics. Now, Joe takes this and applies it to our lives in a way that is generally paradigm shifting. If reality at its most fundamental level is pure potential, If matter is just energy that has been collapsed into form by observation and expectation, then what are you observing every day? What are you expecting? What are you paying attention to? Your attention is not passive, it is generative. Here's where this connects to manifestation in a very practical way. Most of us, when we try to create something new in our lives, are thinking about what we don't have. We're focused on the absence, the gap, the lack. We're observing our current reality with all its limitations and emotionally reacting to it, which according to both neuroscience and quantum physics just reinforces more of the same. Joe says, to create a new reality, you have to stop being defined by your past and start living from your future. You have to think from your desired outcome, not toward it. And this is critical. You have to feel it, not fake it, not visualize it half-heartedly from a place of longing, but genuinely, neurologically, emotionally embody the state of the person who already has what you want. Because when you do that, when your brain and body are both aligned with a new emotional signature, you start to emit a different energy. You start to make different decisions. You start to notice things differently. And you start to take different actions without even realizing it. I want to pause and make something really clear here. This is not think happy thoughts and the universe delivers. Dispenza is not saying that at all. What he's saying is that your internal state, your thoughts, your emotions, your beliefs create the conditions for change. It shifts your behavior, your decisions, your perception, your openness to opportunity. And those things, over time, reshape your external reality. It's inside out change, not magical thinking, not bypassing action, but creating a coherent internal environment from which powerful, aligned action becomes natural. Okay, so now we understand the problem. Now we understand the science. Let's talk about the actual work, because this is where Joe really earns his stripes, I think. What does it actually look like to break the habit of being yourself? Joe lays out a process, and at its heart are two common things: meditation and mental rehearsal. Step 1, become aware of the unconscious self. You cannot change what you cannot see. So the first step is actually getting conscious about who you've been operating as. This means getting honest about your habitual thoughts, your recurring emotional states, your unconscious beliefs running the show. Joe suggests a practice he calls the mental rehearsal of your old self, essentially sitting quiet and observing the familiar thoughts, emotions, and behaviors that define your current personality. Not to judge them, not to suppress them, just to see them clearly. Because the moment you become the observer of your thoughts, you are no longer completely at the mercy of them. There's the gap, a space, and in that space lives the possibility of choice. This is also where I want to mention very briefly my own experience with this work. When I first came across Joe's book, what really struck me wasn't the neuroscience or the quantum theory. It was how clearly it named something I'd been experiencing but couldn't articulate. The feeling of wanting to change, trying to change, and yet always ending up back in the same patterns, the same emotional loops. Reading his work felt like being handed a map to something I'd been trying to navigate in the dark, and that map started with awareness. Step 2, mentally rehearse the new self. This is where the real transformation begins, and it's more than visualization. It's a full neurological rewiring process. You sit in meditation and you begin to mentally rehearse, in vivid, specific detail, the thoughts, behaviors, and most importantly, the emotions of the person you want to become. Not, I will be confident one day. What does it feel like to be confident right now? What are you thinking? How are you moving through the world? What are you noticing? What decisions are you making? And you stay in that state, really feeling it until your body starts to believe it's real. Because remember, your nervous system doesn't distinguish between a real experience and a vividly imagined one. So if you can produce the emotional and physical feeling of your desired future in your body right now, you have begun to condition your biology for that future. Joe calls this living in the future, not fantasizing about it, not hoping for it, but being it in your thoughts, in your feelings, in your physiology, in this present moment. Step 3, break the emotional addictions. This is, in my opinion, the most underrated part of Joe's work and the most important. He talks about how we are often more attracted to our negative emotional states than we realize. Not consciously, but because those states are familiar, they feel safe. The anxiety feels like protection. The self-criticism feels like control. The low-level sadness has become almost comforting in its predictability. And these emotional addictions will sabotage your growth every single time. Because every time you start to feel good, to feel expanded, to feel like the new version of you, your body will panic. It'll say, this doesn't feel like home, go back. So part of the work is sitting in the discomfort of change, feeling unfamiliar emotions and not running from them, learning to make the new state feel safe. This requires repetition. It requires patience. But with enough consistent practice, the new becomes the familiar, and the familiar becomes who you are. All right, let's get into the practical piece because I know that's what you're here for. Practice 1, the morning identity audit. Before you reach for your phone in the morning, before you let the outside world in, take 5 minutes to just observe. Ask yourself, what am I automatically thinking right now? What emotion is already present in my body? What do I believe is possible for today? You're not trying to change anything, you're just getting conscious. You're stepping into that observer role because awareness is always the first move. Practice 2, define your new self in specific terms. Vague desires produce vague results. Joe is very clear on this. I want to be more confident is too abstract. Your brain doesn't know what to do with that. Instead, get specific. What does the confident version of you think about when they wake up? How do they speak to themselves? What do they say yes to? What do they say no to? What emotions do they carry through the day? Write it down in detail, not as a future vision, but in present tense, as if it's already who you are. I am someone who XYZ. Practice 3, the 2-minute emotional shift. At least once a day, ideally 2 or 3 times, take 2 minutes to intentionally generate an elevated emotion. Gratitude is the most accessible one, not surface level gratitude, real felt gratitude, the kind that actually moves through your body. Close your eyes. Think of something that genuinely fills you with appreciation. Let yourself really feel it. Breathe into it. Let it expand. What you're doing is literally shifting your neurochemistry. You're producing a different hormonal environment. You're interrupting the habitual chemical loop of your old emotional state. Practice 4, meditation with intention. If you're willing to go deeper, Joe's guided meditations are extraordinary. His Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself meditation series walks you through the full process, from becoming conscious of the unconscious to mentally rehearsing the new self to installing a new emotional signature in the body. The key distinction Joe makes is the difference between thinking from your desired reality versus thinking about it. When you think about something, you're observing it from the outside, from a place of separation. When you think from it, you're inside the experience, feeling it, embodying it. That's the shift that creates real neurological change. And if you're interested in this, his meditations are available on Spotify in the audiobooks. So if you have a membership, then you can go and access them. Practice 5, catch the relapse. Here's the honest truth. You will have days, many of them, where you slip right back into your old self. Old thoughts, old emotions, old reactions. Dispenza doesn't call this failure. He calls it information. Every time you catch yourself running the old program, that's a moment of awareness. and awareness is progress. The goal isn't to be the new version of you 100% of the time. The goal is to make the conscious moments more frequent and the unconscious relapses shorter and shorter. Every time you catch the pattern and redirect, even for a moment, you are weakening that old neural circuit and strengthening the new one. I want to zoom out for a moment because I think what makes Jo's work so relevant to everything we talk about on this podcast, manifestation, mindset, and self-leadership, is that it gives us an understanding of something we often treat as mysterious. Why does mindset matter? Because our thoughts are literally shaping your neural architecture. Why does emotional state matter? Because your body is a chemical environment and that chemistry influences every decision you make. Why does visualization work? Because your brain can't fully distinguish between a vividly imagined future and a real one. Self-leadership at its core is about choosing who you're going to be and then actually being that person, not just in the moments when it's easy, but especially in the moments when it isn't. Are you willing to become uncomfortable enough with who you've been to become who you're capable of being? That's self-leadership. That's real work. All right, gorgeous humans, let's bring this home. Here's what I want you to take away from today. You are not your habits. You are not your history. You are not the sum of your past emotional experiences, no matter how long you've been living that way. Your brain is plastic. Your biology is adaptable. With consistent intentional practice, you can literally become a different person, not by forcing or straining, but by choosing day after day to think, feel, and act from the identity of who you actually want to be. That is not wishful thinking. That is neuroscience. If any of this resonated with you, I cannot recommend Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Jo Dispenza highly enough. Go and read it or listen to it on audiobooks, do the meditations, do the work. And if you're at the very beginning, if even one concept from today opens something up for you, start with the morning identity audit. Just 5 minutes, just observation, that's enough. Because awareness is always the first step. As always, I appreciate you for showing up and going deep with me today. If this episode landed for you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a review if you're feeling generous. It genuinely helps more people find my podcast. And take care of yourself. You're doing better than you think. Thank you so much for listening today, and I will talk to you soon.